Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hey, X, this is my first time posting here. I have a story to share and I don't know who else would possibly believe me. This is not a fucking creepypasta. This happened to me just a few months ago, in August, but I've only really started to come to terms with it now and I think I'm ready to talk about it. But this isn't some shit you can just talk to a therapist about. I'll try to greentext as much as I can, but again, this was a traumatic thing that I haven't gotten over, and it's the first time telling this story to anyone. And you're all non-strangers, so just try to bear with me if I get a little into the details or long-winded. But basically, the other day I started reading about skinwalkers or fleshgates, and I'm like 99% sure now that I encountered one of those fucking things and they are real. I tried as hard as I could to just push that memory to the back of my head and repress it. But after stumbling upon the realization there seemed to be a lot of stories that share similarities with mine, it's clear that I can't do that. So here it goes. Background to start off. I live in a small town in Nova Scotia and was always a bit of a troublemaker as a kid, but I've really smartened up in the past year or so due to the birth of my son. As of a couple months ago, I'm actually a person who prays. I'm 18 now, and he was born when me and my girlfriend were only 17. My girlfriend Emma was raised on a farm and is pretty rugged and outdoorsy. My best friend Ben is a good kid. Small, androgynous guy, likes weird indie electronic music with no lyrics. Doesn't even drink or smoke weed because it gives him anxiety. That kind of guy. We don't have much in common, honestly. I'm not sure how we became friends, but I know what holds our relationship together is a really strong understanding and acceptance of one another. We have the type of relationship where you share everything without asking. Whenever I got in a fight with my parents and kicked out and needed a place to stay, his door and arms were open. And for the past couple years, we've gone on a camping trip together in the summer. I would take him and our girlfriends to this secluded beach about 3 hours away. A half-km stretch of sand in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. Nestled between forested cliffside with nothing but huge rocks for miles on either side. The access road isn't paved. It's long and winding and bumpy, but gorgeous how the trees hang down into a sort of tunnel around you. Little country houses dotting the landscape. Some of them are quaint and pretty and well maintained, while their neighbors are little more than dilapidated, abandoned old shacks. Eventually you come to a bend where the houses stop. The woods get thicker, and the road steeps upward. Then when you get to the top there's a clearing, and you can see over the cliff to one of the most beautiful scenic beaches you could imagine. It's actually enchanting. The beach itself is a public beach, so you aren't technically allowed to camp there. But it's just not the kind of place the few locals would care. And even if they did, the cops wouldn't care enough to drive all the way out there at night to shoo some teenagers off the beach, so we felt pretty comfortable. We had been there twice before, as I mentioned. Both times a few small groups of people came and went throughout the day. But by nighttime and then when we woke up in the morning, we had the whole beach to ourselves. This year, we upgraded to a much bigger, more luxurious tent because we were bringing my baby, and planned to set up his playpen inside the tent to substitute a crib. So, anyway, be me, proud new father and owner of a 2008 Ford Escape SUV. The car is much more cramped this year due to the baby. It's me, my girlfriend Emma, our son, Ben, his girlfriend Jocelyn, and my 2 dogs jammed in the back with all our stuff. Okay, so this isn't really relevant yet, but it will be, so let me just tell you about my dogs. I have 2 Pitbulls, Nebraska and California, Cali. I got Nebraska when I was 10 and raised him from just a little puppy. Now he's just a big lap dog. Cali is the guard dog, can be a mean bitch when she wants to be, and that's why I love her. We adopted her when I was 14 and she was about 8 months old because her previous owners wanted a guard dog but were having trouble reining her in, and the wife was concerned about her child's safety. Given that I didn't have one yet, I thought then was the perfect time to train a badass protector dog. And she was already pretty deep into training but seemed to take to me in Nebraska really well. When Emma got pregnant, I was worried I might have to give her up too because we didn't know how she'd react to a child in the house. But when he was born, the first day we brought him home, she just instantly fell so in love with that baby. She stopped sleeping at the foot of our bed with Nebraska that night and started sleeping under his crib. I think she knows what her role in the family is. and is genuinely happy to be that for our son as her top priority. Okay then, to continue. I park at the end of the road where it loops in a small circle and we head down the path to the beach, carrying as much as we could but leaving plenty behind. We set up camp where the sand turns to patchy grass, 50 to 100 feet in front of the tree line. Everyone has their assignments. Emma begins staking the tent. Ben starts making a fire pit. Jocelyn plays with the baby so he doesn't try to eat rocks, and I make a couple more trips back and forth to the car for the rest of our things. I trip in the sand and eat shit on my way back with the cooler, but luckily no one sees. Finish setting up and crack open cold ones. I drink with Emma and intermittently smoke weed with Jocelyn for a few hours. The sun starts to go down. Ben starts a fire. Despite Emma being the outdoorsy one of our group, Ben is randomly pretty adept at managing a fire pit. The beach is now empty except for our camp and a group of 20-somethings on the far side of the beach also sitting around a campfire. They are progressively getting louder and rowdier. Eventually my kid starts crying, so we put him to bed in our tent. And not too long after, the other group of people starts to slowly clear off the beach. I go behind the tent to take a piss. About 11 o'clock. Their fire is burning lower than ours, but you still make out 3 silhouettes around it. They have no tent, but it looks like they're putting down sleeping bags in the sand. You can see pretty well in the dark here, because even though it has gotten kind of cloudy, the stars shine so brightly they illuminate the clouds, which then reflect off the water and light up the sand. I round the tent back to my seat and can see one of them gets up and begins the trek towards the path up off the beach that most of his friends had already taken. But as he gets closer, it's clear he's coming directly towards us. Nebraska, the big dumb sook that he is, charges to close the distance between us and them. Luckily, this guy was at least somewhat familiar with dogs, because he didn't put his guard up to protect himself. He knew the huge pit bull bearing down on him wasn't going to attack. He pets my dog and continues into our campsite, smiling and waving, apparently drunk or something himself.
Hey guys, I figured I should come over and meet our neighbors for the night. How's it going?
Ben snaps a SHH at him.
There's a baby asleep in the tent.
Oh shit, sorry.
The guy whispers back. It's all good, I reply, extending my hand to shake his. I'm more drunk than Emma and more stoned than Jocelyn. So even though we come here specifically to avoid contact with other campers, I was feeling friendly. I'm anon. I point out my friends and introduce them. Introduces himself as Dougie. Says his friends are getting tired, but he's not, so he came over to meet us. Asking if we're from around here. I tell him kind of, but not really. He says he lives just down at the base of the road we drove up on and camps here all the time since he was a little kid. Suddenly, my phone rings. And before you say then, a skeleton popped out. The phone call was weird for a couple reasons. But at the time in my messed up head, they seemed to like to cancel each other out, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. For starters, there's no fucking cell phone reception on that beach. Literally, as you drive up the road to get here, you lose service. And then almost like you step into some electronic disabling force field. As soon as your feet hit sand, you lose that last bar. Occasionally, it would come back for just a minute or so, and if you caught it, you could check your Facebook or Twitter or whatever. But we don't come camping to look at our phones. So, surprised that someone would be calling me, I answered. And here's where this night starts to actually get fucking weird. I say hello, but there's nothing on the other end, just silence, followed by a short burst of static, and then my service cut back out and I lost the call. I assume at the time I couldn't hear anything because there just wasn't enough reception. Which makes perfect sense. But looking back now, I swear, in that burst of static, I think I heard a baby crying. I have no way to know for sure though, or if that's just me going crazy thinking about how fucked up this all gets. But again, at the time, the phone call didn't totally trigger any mental alarms. Oh, and also, after putting the baby to bed, every 20 to 25 minutes or so, Cali would start whining at the door. So we'd let her in, and then she'd just want back out. So after she did that, I think 3 times, we just left the bottom of the tent unzipped so she could poke her head under and check on the baby, which satisfied her. But at this point in the night, after repocketing my phone, I hear Nebraska start growling. Nebraska doesn't growl at strangers. He doesn't growl at Cali, he doesn't growl, period. Ever. I literally don't think I've heard him growl since he was a puppy. He's a total pussycat. He's actually got quite a bit of size on Cali, but she picks on him relentlessly. And every time he just takes it until he curls up in my lap. One time when he was younger, he brought home a dead kitten in his mouth from God knows where. So I had to kick his ass for that. But even then I felt pretty bad about it because I'm sure he was just trying to play with it and didn't know his own strength. And he never did anything like that again. This was absolutely not like my dog to be taking an aggressive line like this. So now I do start to feel like something is off. That's when it hit me. That putrid fucking smell. The air smelled like fish normally, which isn't super pleasant to begin with, but you do adjust quickly because it's so clear and fresh otherwise. This was like the entire bay's supply of fish had suddenly all went belly up at the same time. And the unmistakable stench of death had just rolled in off the water, smacking us all in the face and continuing on its way up into the woods. Nebraska is inching away from our camp towards the woods, still growling. He's fixated on something at the tree line. Must be a deer or something. I fucking hope it's not like a bear. It's hard to make out through the brush, but I think I see two little red lights, like the flashing of your phone when its battery is critical, but unblinking, watching. Nebraska lets out what I can only describe as a war cry because I've never heard him bark like that before, and fucking darts off running into the woods. Now I'm not so much creeped out by this. I'm fucking annoyed as shit that I have to wander around the woods potentially all night looking for my dog. But I do love him and have no intention of just leaving him behind. And I'm really worried and sad about the possibility of it coming to that. Nebraska, I call out as he disappears from sight. Nebraska, get back here, but to no avail.
He doesn't usually take off like that, does he?
Dougie correctly assumed that we would not bring him here if he was a flight risk. No. That's really unlike him. I stutter back, scanning around for Cali. While we were all focused on Nebraska, she had disappeared. Some guard dog, I thought. But turns out she had just quietly slunk into the tent and was resting by the baby's playpen. Good girl, Cali. Stay, I order, tossing her a graham cracker and zipping the tent all the way up behind me. Dougie says he has an old .22 hunting rifle in his trunk, and offers to go get it to help me look for Nebraska in case we encounter critters. At this point I remember I have a handgun of my own in my car. It's a semi-automatic C2 revolver. One of those guns that is classified between an airsoft toy and a real pistol like a Glock. It's probably not lethal except to small animals, unless you were to fire it point blank at someone's head. But that's more than dangerous enough to drop the orange tip you have to put on toy guns. What's more, it should be loaded with hunting pellets. I had bought the thing impulsively a couple years back and only ever used it a couple times to shoot at cans with my ex. Then I stashed it under my seat in the car and just more or less forgot about it for like 2 years. I was quite pleased with this revelation, because it meant I could take the hatchet into the woods and still leave the campsite with some form of weapon. I informed Dougie and hand him my keys to retrieve it, trusting this stranger not to steal my car. I roll a small joint and smoke it. Dougie returns with the heat, hands me my pistol and keys. The gun is dirty and sticky from being neglected, but we have baby wipes. I clean it off and decide I should probably make sure it still works. There are 8 pellets in the 10-round chamber. Could be worse. Have Emma watch what I'm doing as I remove the safety and cock the hammer. I aim at the woods and pull the trigger. Works fine, feels good, man. I feel powerful. Quickly dawns on me that we are cocking guns and shit like we're in a fucking horror movie, and shit gets a little spookif of me. Overwhelming sense of dread. I hand Emma my gun and go back in the tent to kiss my dog and son goodbye and tell them I love them in case I die. Baby is fast asleep. Cali is wide awake. I exit the tent and pick up the hatchet off the ground. Ben is holding the barbecue pitchfork nervously. He intends to use it as a weapon. I tell them if anything starts coming out of those woods, do not try to be a hero. Send Cali to it. It could just be Nebraska coming back. And if it's not, well, she'll give you time to grab the baby and get away. If we're not back in 90 minutes, just go. I mean it. Take the baby and get the fuck out of here. Emma is not happy about this idea. I give Jocelyn my keys anyway. She's the only one of the 3 who can drive, and reassure her that I can always pack our stuff with Dougie and get a ride out of here with him later. Hatchet and rifle in hand, Dougie and I head into the woods. Honestly, nothing spooky happens for about an hour. But no sign of Nebraska. I'm disappointed we couldn't find him. But part of me still hopes he might have just made his way back while we were out looking for him. He hadn't exactly been gone that long. After all, we decide to head back before the others get worried and leave without me cause I was freaking out and told them to. Rustle in bushes. Nebraska, I called. Dougie aims his gun steady in the direction of the sound. Another rustle in bushes from the opposite direction. Dougie spins around with militaristic precision. I'm spooked now. Let's just go. Another sound, way off in the distance. Much deeper into the woods. It's a human baby crying. It's my baby crying. Nope. I'm frozen. You hear that? I ask.
Yeah.
Dougie gulps. I'm very tempted to follow it. My mind races with thoughts of a bear or pack of wolves ambushing our camp and hauling my son off into the night. But I don't think they would have gotten that far ahead of us without hearing him cry before now if he had somehow survived such a thing. We turn around and haul ass out of there. But I am deeply disturbed. I need to get back, now. I need to know everything's okay. We break through the tree line, and there's fucking Nebraska. He's sniffing around behind the tent like he's going to pee on it. Cali must still be inside. The others don't seem to have noticed he came back. Hey, stupid dog, what was that all about? I am so relieved I forget all about the spooky baby crying. Or convinced myself that it was coming from one of the country houses and I was just imagining it sounded exactly like my kid. Or something. I don't know. But in that moment, I can tell you I didn't care. I was just happy to see Nebraska and the others all in one piece. I roll another joint and sit back in the sand, relaxing. Jocelyn drifted in and out of sleep on Ben's lap while he and Emma chatted with Dougie, and Nebraska is just staring at the fire like an idiot. The weed hits and I realize I'm still a little drunk. The weed hits harder and I remember the fucking spooky baby crying. Hey guys, listen. I really think we should probably just go home. Emma and Ben press me. But I don't give them a straight answer. I just keep saying I don't feel good anymore and sketchy shit like that. I don't mention that I'm still kind of drunk, but honestly I was just so uncomfortable my own level of alertness was literally the least of my concerns. Sticking around to find out whatever was in those woods. That was the real risk here. Ben knows me so well. I think he pieced together that something in the woods really shook me. And I was serious, so he gave in and backed me up, eventually agreeing that we should go. I'm not quite spooked enough yet that I'm ready to leave all our shit behind. So we start cleaning up. As soon as Emma opens the tent door, Cali fucking lunges out of it. Seriously. Like a mountain lion or some shit, she actually pounced on Nebraska, knocking Emma aside like she didn't even see her in the way. And it was brutal. See, there are guard dogs, and then there are attack dogs. Guard dogs are protective, loyal, and disciplined. Attack dogs are barely contained, vicious. And what Cali did was a vicious attack. She went right for his jugular. I think she got it too, because he started spurting blood from its neck like a little hose. There's a lot of yelping and snarling for like half a minute and everyone is horrified. Especially Emma. She screams and cries and retreats into the tent. The baby waking and joining her lets me know he's okay. That Cali didn't hurt him. Not that it even occurred to me in the first place that she might have. At this point I have no idea what the fuck was going on. And I reach for my gun Emma left on the ground. Nebraska's bleeding bad and frantically fending off Cali. They're rolling around in the sand and it's becoming stained red. For a second he manages to get the upper hand and pushes her off, staggering them both. Cali almost knocks the fucking tent over but doesn't miss a beat. She jumps up and tackles Nebraska right into the fucking fire. She leaps out from on top of him, almost gracefully, but doesn't stick the landing. It was probably for the best though. Her underside had caught fire just a bit and the thudding into the sand put it out quickly. This is the part of the story where shit starts to defy any rational explanation. Even now, I'm shaking and holding back tears writing this because it was so terrifying. I'll stop calling it Nebraska now, because it becomes apparent that whatever this thing is, it is clearly not my dog. Then stands up on its hind legs and lets out an unholy screeching wail that I swear was so loud you could have heard it across the bay in New Brunswick. It's engulfed in flames and its back is turned to us, so it's facing Cali. But I can tell its shoulders have also been pulled back into a much more human-like position. Tactically wet myself. No, really, I pissed my pants. Bang. Bang. Between that thing screaming and now Dougie popping off gunshots 2 feet away from my head. My ears are ringing now. And I can't tell if it's screaming or what, but I saw its head cocked to the side when the bullet connected. I don't know how many more shots he fired, but I closed my eyes and emptied my clip. Saved one pellet into that thing, and when I opened my eyes it was running back into the woods on its hind legs and still very much on fire. I expect the foliage to start going up in flames as well. But the light quickly disappeared into the darkness. I see all the commotion woke up Dougie's buddies and they're running towards us.
You should get out of here, we won't be far behind.
He said as he jogged over to meet them. I tell everyone to grab whatever they can fit in their hands. We can always get another cooler and tent, but we're getting the entire fuck out of Dodge right now. I say this loudly, partly because I am trying to take charge and mostly because I am at least half deafened. We make our way up the path to the car. And there's fucking Nebraska again. Emma had regained her composure by now because she never actually saw the worst of it. But I could tell this upset her and she was trying very hard not to break down again. He's crying and desperately scratching at the door. Like I had been teasing him with, "You want to go for a car ride for an hour or more," and he just couldn't take the anticipation anymore. I drop my shit and pull out my gun. There's only one pellet left. And after what I just saw, I'm 100% ready to decapitate my dog the second he looks at me funny. But that's the thing is, he doesn't. I call his name and he just looks at me. I don't want to say that everything felt right, because so much was already incomprehensibly wrong, but when he looked at me, he didn't look at me wrong. He looked at me with those big dumb beady pit bull eyes, and I knew it really was my dog this time, and right on cue. As if to confirm it, Cali walked up to him and licked behind his ear, like she always does after she's hurt him and he doesn't want to play with her anymore. Upon closer inspection, he has a gnarly scar over his eye. Oh god, his entire right side is ripped to shreds. Well, it's nothing. Some stitches and antibiotics won't fix, but it looks like it hurts pretty bad. Still, he doesn't seem overly bothered by it, just happy to see us and eager to get in the car. Me too, buddy. I let the dogs in the back, strap the baby in, and we peel out of there, breathing a collective sigh of relief. I see in my rearview mirror some large creature trailing us, running like a gorilla, upright but still with its hands on the ground, as if pacing itself to keep a certain distance. Jesus fucking Christ, no. It's gone. That doesn't make me feel any better at all. The trees around us are shaking violently, sometimes even slightly ahead of us but sticking to either side of the road, like it was actually leaping over the car from tree to tree without ever appearing in sight. I'm still sobering up from the liquor and stoned, doing almost 90 on a road you really shouldn't go over 30 on. Everyone is crying. We clear the dense part of the woods and get to the part where there are houses, and the thing starts to back off. Not all at once, but shortly thereafter. The rustling stopped and the air just felt less tense. We lost the thing. We hit the end of the street and make a left turn onto the main road back towards the highway home. There's someone just standing in the middle of the road. I nope all of my nopes. My headlights shine right into his eyes. But he doesn't blink. He just stood there, with this absolutely nightmare fuel twisted fucking smile that I'll never forget. It's motherfucking Dougie. Of course it is. And now we're playing chicken. There's no possible way he could have gotten so far ahead of us without passing us in his own car. Fresh out of nopes, I make an executive decision. Pedal to the metal.
Oh god, Anon, no. What the fuck?
I fucking mac this unholy entity with my car and don't look back. Ben does.
There's nothing there.
So now I'm definitely worried that this thing is hanging on under the car. But I keep that to myself. I feel like they're thinking it too anyway. I just keep driving. We make it to the highway. And about 40 minutes out, we see a nice well-lit parking lot just off the exit ramp. It's a truck stop and a McDonald's, both open 24 hours. I clutch my gun and open the door, half expecting to be instantly dragged through the pavement directly into hell. But it's clear. Cautiously, I crouched down and verified that there was in fact no monster underneath the car. I'm fairly certain now that we are finally safe. So I roll up the rest of the weed I had saved for tomorrow into a fat fucking blunt, and we all passed it around in the parking lot. Even Ben took some. I let the dogs out and blew some smoke in their faces as well, as I felt like they both had a long night too. Now I notice Nebraska is limping, kinda bad actually. So getting him medical attention is bumped up on our priority list. I asked the guy working in the gas station, and he says there's an emergency animal hospital just a couple more towns over that deals mostly with cattle but could take a look at him. We hit McDonald's before getting back on the highway. And of course, just top everything, we had just been through off their fucking ice cream machine was broken. Anyway, the vet stitches Nebraska up and gives him some painkillers and antibiotics, but says his leg is broken and we'd be better of getting that taken care of at home. When we finally make it home, the sun is up and we don't bother going to sleep. We just wait a couple hours until our local vet opens up. She puts his leg in a cast, but also tells us that he's gone blind in his right eye. And that's pretty much the end of the story. Sorry if it was a little anticlimactic, but it is all true. Left is Nebraska. Right is Cali.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.